Hello, everyone, and welcome to Session 3 of the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. My name is Randie Henderson, and I am one of the Black Feminist Reading Circle members of this online group. This session runs from January 20th until June 2nd and includes 2 week-long breaks. Our democratically selected reading material is Harriet A. Washington's book, Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. Our book group meets each Tuesday evening from 6:30 to 8 on the Google Plus Hangouts on Air platform. You may find the Global Black Feminist Reader Circle on Google Plus, YouTube, and Facebook, and always feel free to join us in reading our story together.
Welcome everyone to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. My name is Michelle Odom. I am located in Brooklyn. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Reading Circle along with Randie Henderson. You are invited to join the Reading Circle, and you can find information about us on Google Plus, where you can join our community page, or YouTube, where you can find our archived videos. And we also have a page on Facebook. We are in session 3, meaning this is the 3rd book that the group is reading. Reading Harriet A. Washington's Medical Apartheid, A Dark History of Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. And tonight we're focused on chapter 9, Nuclear Winter, Radiation Experiments on Black Americans.
Hey, my name is Georgette Moses, and I'm participating in the warm spot of Columbia, South Carolina.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Venita Walker, and I'm joining you from Cromwell, Connecticut. Welcome.
Yes, I'm Joel Jones, coming from Charleston, North Charleston, South Carolina.
Hi, my name is Edwina, and I'm glad to see everyone. I'm here in Utah.
Hi, my name is Randie, and I'm watching from Atlanta, and I'm moderating tonight.
Chapter 9, Nuclear Winter, Radiation Experiments on African Americans. In this chapter, we learn of the many ways the government, physicians, scientists, and those in power tricked, cajoled, found loopholes, lied, and experimented on Black people, poor people, and sick people. Harriet Washington provides information on the racism embedded in these experiments and how lack of education and integrity from the government aided in the detriment of the people exposed to plutonium, X-rays, skin lightening products, and radiation. Georgette, let's read point C.
Okay. Everything changed for Allen when he fell from a train in Chicago. He fractured his leg, a very common occupational injury for a Pullman porter, but the Pullman Company refused to accept responsibility for the accident. The Pullman Company terminated him without compensation of any kind, leaving him unemployed and unemployable. A year later, his knee had swollen to 3 times its normal size, while his bank account shrank to $25. Mounting medical bills and overdue rent drove him in desperation to the place he had avoided for so long, the University of California, San Francisco's free clinic. There he was diagnosed with chondrosarcoma, a cancer of the bone. On July 18, 1947, Allen's left leg was injected with plutonium-238, an even more radioactive isotope than the plutonium-239 given other patients. He had just become subject CAL-37. Okay. And the question is, We learned that during his time as an experiment, Alan's leg is amputated, and until the day he dies, he believes that the doctors amputated his leg not for his well-being, but so they could study the plutonium's effect. He lived until he was 80, but it was a hard life, and his relationships with his children were strained until they learned that he had been telling the truth the entire time. Would you have believed your father if he was a drunk and seemingly angry all the time? Would you believe a family member before reading this chapter? Wow. And that is a deep question because really, I have to say, before I started from our last book in this group, helping me to understand what the older generations went through, I would have said, oh, he's got some problem, and maybe if he stopped drinking, he could straighten himself up. He's lost his leg, but he could, at least treat us better. We're his family. We love him. But after seeing and reading all of this information, he had a real reason to be angry.
Mhm.
And the people around him, because they probably didn't want to have to deal with the effects of believing his story,
Mhm.
chose to not believe him and place him at fault.
Right.
Because still wrapped up in, oh, these are doctors, the hospital, they can't have had ulterior, nefarious motives for, what your condition now. It was an accident, you fell off the train, and it's fate, or it's God, just believe in God, and this is the path He's taking you on is going to make you stronger. You need to put down the bottle, but hey, maybe that bottle was keeping him from killing some people.
Yeah.
So, so I have to say that, maybe not before reading this chapter, but before reading the past book that we've read, I probably wouldn't have given a family member the benefit of the doubt that they deserved for the story they were telling. So, but most definitely now, most definitely now.
Mhm.
I love hearing that. That question that Georgette just read, let, let me read it again.
Mm. All right.
We learned, don't count this against my time, Venita.
Okay. I was about ready, but all right.
We learned that during his time as an experiment, Alan's leg is amputated, and until the day he dies, he believes that the doctors amputated his leg not for his well-being, but so they could study the plutonium's effect. He lived until he was 80, but it was a hard life, and his relationships with his children were strained until they learned that he had been telling the truth the entire time. Would you have believed your father if he was a drunk and seemingly angry all of the time? Would you believe a family member before reading this chapter? Okay, you can start clocking me, Venita. Whew. Well, Georgette, I love to hear you saying that these readings um, have changed how you might respond in a similar situation, because that really is, I think the objective for me. This story really, really did resonate with me because, you know, it's so much of what my experience has been over the past decade, really. You know, first I had a health problem, and it was a crazy health problem. It was, you know, carbon monoxide poisoning from my car. Who gets that? You know, name me one other person that you've ever heard of.
Nobody.
They're not alive. That's all I have to say. They're not alive.
And so, you know, it was a crazy sounding story to begin with. But then after that, which leads to my unemployment, then when I get ready to go back to work, it's the worst economy we've ever seen. And I, who have worked all my life and been independent all my life and have more skills than I can count, could not find a job to save my life. But if you put that in a sentence to your family and friends, their response, unless they're Venita, their response tends to be disbelief. And so I would say, I can't find a job to find my life. And people would say back to me, have you talked to a psychiatrist? And I would say, is a psychiatrist going to give me a job? I think you need to talk to somebody. Do you hear what I'm saying? And it just really went down from there. But I think what I learned from it, and I said this to Venita the other day, I think what I learned is that if love is going to exist, that we have to let go of our need to understand, because we can't understand. There's so many things. Life is just so complex. People and their situations are just so individualized. As human beings, we are simply incapable of understanding most of it. And so if we try to understand, that leads us down the road to judgment. And then once we get into judgment, we're into erroneous judgment. And then once we get into erroneous judgment, love is gone. And so we no longer are capable of responding to people in a compassionate, humane, loving way. So if we want love to exist, we have to let go of our need to understand. And that's hard. I know it's hard.
Yeah. I let you go over, Michelle, because what you were saying was very profound, and we need to hear that.
Thank you. Anybody else on question C1?
Yeah. I always believe that anything is possible, so I probably would have believed him. But you're talking to a girl that believes in unicorns. I saw one yesterday. Right out here. And when I tell my family I saw a unicorn, they don't believe me. But if I call Michelle and said, Michelle, I saw a unicorn, Michelle said, what did it look like? But seriously, I learned a long time ago there's always some truth to every story. So even with him being an alcoholic, even with him being angry with his family, and they're saying this grouchy man, there is some truth to every story. And most alcoholics that I've known in my life, when you sit down with them and you listen to the things that they're telling you, there's a reason why they're drinking that alcohol. And it's not always because I feel sorry for myself. Feeling sorry for myself came after somebody did something to them.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I probably would be the only person that would sit down and he would have told me that story, and I'd have been nosy enough, if nothing else, to try to go find out what happened. You know.
Yeah.
Because I believe anything is possible.
Yeah.
That's it.
Anybody else?
Well, if you don't mind me saying anything, I believe my father, when he would reminisce about the South and talk about the KKK, and I would, and I always wondered, what did you mean by that? And he would say Ku Klux Klan, and that's how I got initiated into the strife and his internal struggle that he was going through as a man, and how he suffered as a child, and he would always go back to that. And that's how I learned the terminology from listening to my father.
Thank you. And I guess I would just add also that when we deny what someone is telling us about their experience, it stops us from responding in a humane way, and it plays out in all of our individual relationships as well as structural social relationships. So this whole thing about being in a post-racial society, or white people denying our stories, of the Black experience, or even Black people these days denying the stories of the Black experience, then it stops us from putting the kinds of policies and resources in place that would actually address the problem. I needed real help, but I can't get the help if you're busy telling me there's not a real problem.